Right. So we're back. We're back with another stream. We're continuing where we left off yesterday. So we're still working on this side mission, which is like a holdout style mission. Only we've got a few other things going on. And yesterday we were working on randomizing the underground a bit, which is I think is a fun first dive into that. Maybe someday we'll have that in free play as well. But this is kind of a first experiment into kind of a more randomized underground. So if we have a quick look at it, what we did yesterday, we randomized the caverns a bit. So there's an example of a randomized cavern. So we haven't looked at. Oh, we've still got issues with still got issues with the ants moving around like we did yesterday. So yeah, just rebuilding the path, see if that helps at all. So now we've got those creating. We need to create some food as well. So the random caverns work. Oh, we also wanted to block it off from if they cross over each other. Prevent the caverns from appearing. And once we've added the ability to do randomized food, I think then we'll be looking at okay, so we need to pull that value back in a bit more. There clearly is still situations where that can happen. So this is the randomized stuff. Okay, so I just want to pull that value back in a bit. Minus 60 and 60. I'll go with minus 40 and 40. I think that'll probably prevent them from going into walls. We'll have to see. Okay, so actually I don't need to save that at that point. I want the food rewards to be on par with the danger of each cavern. And I also want the creatures in the cavern to be selected appropriately. So I think Liam invented this thing called danger mass. Although I think I'm just going to work off point value. Danger mass is something Liam invented for level 3.1 and 3.2. And basically the packs of creatures that spawn on those levels are based on kind of this value called danger mass, which weighs them up against each other and decides how many to spawn. However, I think I'm just literally going to use score, probably mostly because I don't think danger mass is implemented for all creatures in the game, but I know score is. So we've got some decisions to make. What creatures do we allow to be underground on this level? First. And second, how do we want to split the danger of each of these caverns? There's so much to consider. It's a huge amount to consider. But we'll get there. Okay, so before I do any of that, I'm just going to create random food items. We'll reel in the randomness once I've got an example of everything working. So I'm just going to create some random food sources. Probably just start with seeds to start with. So where's the random? There's the random value. Okay, I'm going to make it again. Do this at a new random tile and a new random location. Random. Okay, let's just make it do that and see what happens. So that should spawn the same amount of seeds as it does tile surfers. Not necessarily in the same locations. How's everyone today? Right, you won't have actually been able to see what I was doing there. I just realised. Okay, so there we go. Random seeds, random tile locations. Okay. So next I want to prevent it. So at the minute it's just adding more and more into over the top of each other. But I actually want the caverns to prevent them. Aha! Good to have you with us, Raccoon. Raccoon? I actually want to, when they overlap, I want them to remain separate caverns. So there's actually a fairly simple way of doing this. So that's checking intact. If the tile's dug out, it labels true, or if it's a cavern. So this is looking at a tile and looking at its neighbouring tiles. If its neighbour is a cavern, it can't do this one either. So this is literally just needs to be an or. That's a bit confusing. There we are. Well, welcome back, Pacatane. Okay, so now what we should see is the is they don't actually overlap. They kind of leave a one tile space between them. So it's really complicated what we've got to achieve at the end, but the key to it is to not think about the end goal. Okay, so here we see some circles have been drawn on top of each other. However, what we should find... Oh, errors. Interesting. What was the errors? Access none, trying to read property. Trying to read which property? Getting the items from the array. So it got none when it tried to access items from the array. So if the tile is, if the neighbouring tile is dug out, or the neighbouring tile is a cavern, okay, hang on, there is an issue here. No, I can't see it, actually, thinking about it. Clearly is an issue. Alright, let's see what this does.
The ants must fight. The queen is in imminent danger.
Well, that wasn't what I was hoping for. Okay, so at some point it's tried to access an item in the array. Yeah, that definitely would have killed me, that thing. But I haven't. They're all the same at the minute. Maybe I should make them woodworms, just so, just for testing purposes. I mean, this is where the tile surfer gets created, and this is where it gets decided what it is. So just make it a woodworm. So much simpler. Okay, so for some reason, viewed cavern ended up with nulls in the array. Let me just double check that that is because of that I added. Let me check that. Yeah. Well, there's multiple. There's 3 people on the team, but I am working on this level on my own. Okay, so we're not getting any errors now, so it's definitely to do with the cavern thing. It's definitely to do with the cavern check. Okay, we need to figure out why that's causing an issue. So it's looking at the viewed tile. Looking at the tiles surrounding the viewed tile. Going through each one. For some reason, checking whether it is a cavern. Try this. Rather than understanding the problem here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we are getting issues there. Oh. It's really just to do with being a cavern. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make the error more consistent because it seems to happen when they're overlapping. I'm not sure if that's the truth, but it does seem to happen when they're overlapping. So this is what gets the random cavern point to start with. Instead, I'm just going to work with one cavern point. So rather than getting a random one, I'm going to get a specific one, and we're going to draw our caverns in one point. That should make it more consistent. Seems to happen more the more caverns it's drawing over the top of. What could be causing that? this seems like a bad idea. Hang on. I can really make it consistent. By having the second tile it selects, which is meant to be a random one within that. Let's make that a very specific tile. Okay, yeah, so that's a lot more consistent. It's happening instantly. Let's have a look what's happening. Okay, I think I've got it. And I think it's to do with... Give me a second. I'm going to keep an eye on that off screen. Okay. It appears to be something to do with zero. I think it's the situation where the tile is actually... Yeah, I think I can see it. I'll show you. So, what... See here exactly with the caverns. So, what I think is happening... So, in the situation where we've drawn a cavern on top of another cavern, basically it's checking them to see if it's already a cavern, spotting that it's already a cavern, which is what this is, so is cavern. It's coming out true, it's going, yep, that's a cavern. When that happens, it stops looking at that tile, it goes, okay, we can't turn this tile into a cavern, move on. Now, if it does that to all of them, then nothing gets added into this array, which is the array of of the cavern that we're trying to put together. So with an empty array here, see, this is the issue. It's going, right, we need to create a random amount of creatures in this cavern between 1 and the maximum number. But if the cavern's empty, it shouldn't, because it can't create a cavern, this shouldn't be running. So basically we just need to have a look at the view creatures array. I think this should solve it. We just need to see if there's anything in this array. If there's nothing in that array, then we need to not create a cavern. Yeah, basically there's a cavern that can't be made, and then it's trying to populate the cavern that can't be made with creatures and things. If we have made a cavern. Okay. Yeah, it's just thinking there is one there when there's not. Right, let's see if that works. So, oh, don't need the breakpoints anymore. There we are, we're not getting any errors anymore. Okay. Right, let's reattach that, get rid of that. We should be back to where we were. Sorry, a little bit of bug fixing there. Oh, actually there is something else I need to reattach. The ore. Okay, so let's hope the movement, yeah, the movement's not broken. So essentially these shouldn't be connected, though I might need to reel some of it in looking at it. Yeah, so that's an example of me needing to reel it in a little bit. Okay, so that is a very small cavern. It was a cavern. Again, another very small cavern. Again, a single tile cavern. Okay, I'm starting to think something else is wrong now. Yeah, we're getting lots of 3-tile caverns. Or 1-tile caverns. That is no reason why this stuff up here shouldn't be all be one big cavern. Alright. Back to the drawing board. Right, so why would this be the case? I think I know why. I think this ore is the problem. Interestingly enough. So the tile's dug out. So if a neighbouring tile is dug out, or that neighbouring tile is a cavern, we don't turn this tile into a cavern. Let me investigate this. If I just create one there, dig up to it. Of course, my ants are broken. You know what might help is if I remove these queen tiles so they're not trying to do the brood job. Because I think the brood job is what breaks it at the minute. Yeah. Let's see if this is a cavern. Okay, no. I know what the issue is. I know what the issue is. Okay, this one's a funny one. And it's an interaction between what we're doing. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're looking at a single tile. So we're looking at a single tile. So let's say this square here is the tile we're looking at. And we're looking at all the tiles next to it. And we go in, are you a cavern? 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 So once we've looked at all of those tiles, if they're all not a cavern, we go, this is a cavern. So we change that into a cavern. Then we go over to this tile and we go, right, are you a cavern? 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 This one is now a cavern because we just changed it into a cavern a second ago. So this one goes, well, I can't be a cavern then. And so that's not a cavern. Then we look at this one, and this one goes, are you a cavern? 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 Doesn't find a cavern and makes it a cavern. So we've got a situation where we've got one small cavern, not a cavern, one small cavern. And that's what it's doing across the whole of the thing. Now the way we solve this is we don't make the tile a cavern until we've got our full room. So we've done the full check on every tile in the room and checked whether the neighbouring tiles are caverns. Just to get a hammer. Let's make a cavern. So basically we don't turn the tile into caverns until we've populated this viewed cavern thing. And then at this point, when we've got the full list of caverns, if there is caverns, we then loop through them all and turn them into caverns at the same time. Then we go on to do the rest of the stuff. So that should do it. I have full confidence that this is going to work with absolutely no issues. I'm so confident I'm not even going to test it. No, that's a terrible idea. Never be so confident in your code that you're not going to test it. So there was actually 2 bugs in what I'd done. How exciting. Yay! Okay, so this should be an interesting test. And I'm liking how this is looking already. Because these overlapping each other, it's caused these ones in between to not have anything in them. Which is what I was expecting. So this should this should be like a moon-shaped room. Yay, moon-shaped room. And then 1 tile in to the moon-shaped room. Okay, stop attacking stuff. Stop it. Oh, I've deleted my queen tiles. I no longer have any control over my ants. Well, they're just going to murder all those woodworm then. Oh, now they're broken. Great. Stop murdering woodworm. Thank you. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's exactly what I was expecting. Okay. Okay. Right, what's next? Okay, do we start to reel the randomness back in now? I'm going to shove a few of these further out as well. Just kind of fill in the gaps. The bottom one's slightly smaller than the others, so I might just have 2 down here. Okay, so adding those extra points in should spread the caverns out a bit more when they get created. So I guess the next thing to do is to decide on how much food we need to give the player and how much protection that food should have. Okay, so I don't think every creature needs to be in these caverns. Let's think about the ones that we have in the game that spawn underground and which selection of creatures we want to use. So there's obviously the Devil's Coach horses and the Rove beetles. I think we just stick to Devil's Coach horse and Devil's Coach horse adult, and maybe even some woodworm. Stick to like the first levels of the game. Creatures that come in those rooms. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called food total cavern food, be an integer. At the minute I'm going to keep everything on this left bracket test thing, but I'll move it into the level actual setup when we get there. So total food, so how much food do we want to be on the floor of the map? I'd say about 1,500. I'm not sure what other sources of food they're going to be in the level, so I probably need to think about that. But either way, just an arbitrary value to start with. We can toy with it all later. So with a food value of 1,500, I need to decide what the point to food ratio is. I'll tell you what I mean by that. So if we have a look at the creature stats, creatures in the game have a point value. Now if we're just going to go with Devil's Coach Horse and Devil's Coach Horse Adult in these areas, it's an Uber Devil's Coach Horse Adult. They're very early on actually. Okay, so Devil's Coach Horse Larvae and Devil's Coach Horse Adult. So point value is 25 and 125. So if we say every 100 food is guarded by 100 points worth of creatures, so if we do a 1-to-1 ratio, then an area with 100 food should have 4 Devil's Coach Horse or 1 Devil's Coach Horse Adult. In fact, Devil's Coach Horse Adult wouldn't be able to spawn in an area that's of less than 100 food, 125 food. So Just trying to think. So for each tile in that cavern, what's the random value of a seed? Between 5 and 15. Okay, so for each tile in that cavern, we should be aiming to have about 15 food. Let's just say that. So I'll create another variable just so we've got everything. Food per tile. It's going to be 15. So this is where I start to peel out the randomness of things. So there's still going to be a lot of randomness, but it's not going to be completely random. So bigger rooms will have more food, more enemies in it. Okay. Oops, don't need to move that on top of that. I'm just going to shift these out of the way for now, because I need to do some work separate to them. Okay, so our target food see you later, Raccoon. Thanks for joining me. Yeah, adulting's never fun, is it? Well, it's not always true. But yeah, I understand. Responsibilities. Right. Okay, so so the length multiplied, not by float, integer multiplied by integer. We stay within integers. It's a multiplication, it's not a division, so we don't have to worry about it. Length multiplied by food per tile. So this is going to be a variable. I'm going to call it food left to spawn. Right, and what we're going to do is we're going to have this value, and then we're going to generate food until we've generated enough food in the food left to spawn. So let's get our food spawning code. It's a while loop. So while food left to spawn is greater than 0, we're going to spawn a seed. Get the food held. Minus it from the food left to spawn. There we go. Okay, so currently this loop will loop until we've gone over the amount. Really, what we want to do is so we should be seeing that bigger rooms have bigger amounts of food. Oh, that's a bit funny. I'm going to dig this out because there should be a layer between these two tiles that isn't a cavern. Looks like that's the... yeah, you can actually see. It's okay. That's perfect. It's done its job. I just couldn't see where the line was. Yeah, perfect. I think the rooms need to be made a bit smaller myself. But that's easy enough to do. So let's reduce the size that the rooms can be. I don't want such massive rooms. I think that's fine. Okay, so once it's done that, we're going to decide here the point value of creatures that so I think at the moment I said a 1-to-1 ratio, just for now. So essentially we're going to then spawn the tile surfers on another while loop. It's going to be a very similar situation. going to cycle through it. Spawn the tile surfer. Now, setting the class. So if creatures left to spawn is greater than I need to get hold of the creature stats now. I think it's just called so there's its stats. Point value should be around here somewhere. Okay. So if it is greater than that value, you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just store these point values somewhere because I'm going to need to call it a couple of times. The minute again, I'm just going to do it here just to keep it all together. Eventually it'll probably happen at the beginning of the game. Just want to check that these creatures are actually named that. Because at the moment, I'm just guessing. One sec. One second. Sorry about that. Right. But hello. Hello, Wheelcopter. Good to have you with us. Okay, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was storing the point values of the Devil's Coach Horse and Devil's Coach Horse Adult. Just so it can be neater down here. So if creatures left to spawn is greater than the adult's cost, then we can spawn either, so it's random. Else we can only spawn the Devil's Coach Horse. Cool. I was about to check. What the creature names are. Okay. Good job I checked, because I got that wrong. I didn't even fill anything in for that. I think it is just adult with the other one though. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, there we go. There we go. I'm just going to put a bracket around this and say setup. A comment box around this and say setup. Okay. I am going to try and keep going for a bit longer than I normally do today because I really want to make some grounds on this. So we'll see where we get to. And I don't really have any tasks other than this I need to do at the minute. So there's nothing that I need to do off stream right at this minute. Still waiting on a lot of the movement stuff to be done. Hopefully by the time we're streaming next week, there'll be a significant jump in that. See where we can get to. Okay, there we go. Right, so based on that, we then need to minus from the point value That's the adult. No. Sorry, I've mucked this up a little bit. Okay, so the creature's left to spawn value minus the Devil's Coach Horse adult point value. Set that to the new creature left. So we're minusing Devil's Coach Horse adult point value off there. And here we minus the larvae off. This is an example of the kind of thing that is much neater in code. Okay, so adult and the larvae minus the point value off, so that should do it, I think. And then finally, there's one last thing we need to do, which is here, which is total cavern food. There isn't just one last thing we need to do. We also need to take into account the fringe cases here. And I'll do that in a moment. But for now, total cavern food minus the food left to spawn. Set the total cavern food. So that reduces the total cavern food. Will there ever be more than 2 missions per segment? No, we've never planned on doing more than 2 missions per segment in the campaign section of it. What we're working on at the what I'm working on at the moment is extra levels, which aren't actually tied to the campaign as such. They're just separate extra levels. Although we are looking at ways in which we can reward the player for doing them. And in these levels, that'll give us an opportunity to explore some extra things. But no, we're not planning on having any more than 2 main missions per segment. Certainly not currently planning. Okay, so basically, we now need to run the whole thing. So we'll do another while loop here. Right, okay, so we have the potential here to enter an infinite loop. So we've got to be careful. Because this is the only point that reduces the total cavern food. So if we never manage to get to this point, we will be in an infinite loop. Yes, the fire answer for the next are going to be on the next tier. Yes, you are correct. So we've got a few options here, ways that we can break out of this loop. I don't think we'll get an infinite loop. don't think we will. But do I want to risk it? Is that really the kind of risk I want to take? I probably shouldn't. I probably should have a way of breaking out of it. Okay. So if we failed 20 times, max fails, breaking loop. So to break the loop, all we need to do is set the total cavern food to 0, and that should be it. Okay, let's give that a go. No, this is actually a different level. Although it's holdout style level, so it's so that's why I've named it Holdout Extreme for now. But what I'm trying to do is randomize the underground caverns. So there we are, random caverns. Right, I'm noticing something that doesn't seem particularly random here. And there's an awful lot of tile surface. In fact, what I would say, judging just by eye here, is something's probably being run 3 times. Or twice, at least. Okay, so for example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tile surface for what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of food. Oh god.
The battle has begun.
Yeah, that's not exactly fair. For that measly amount of food. Okay. Right, let's have a look. Let's have a look. I'll get rid of that now. Yeah. You're absolutely right. The creatures themselves are worth a lot more than the than the little bits of food on the floor. First of all, let's make sure we're not doing anything stupid like setting the... Right. Just going to quickly put a breakpoint in there and make sure these values are coming through correctly. Well, that's wrong. 5. Ah. Success false. You know what? Bet that's it. There we are. That's better. Okay, that looks a little bit more sensible. What do you think? That's a funny location for a cavern. It must have just clipped that one tile and so it's put one piece of food in it. I don't think this is bad though. This little system's it looks like we're getting some decent results here. And it should feel fairly fair. Like, large amounts of food should be defended by large amounts of creatures. Small amounts of food by small amounts of creatures. Yeah. Tunnel through to there, although that seems fine. My guess is that'll be a Devil's Coast horse larvae. Because it won't have been able to spawn the adult. Yeah, there we are. But I say that while feeling a slight awe at not seeing dozens and dozens of creatures go murder and eat. Yeah, aw. It's true. It's true. Okay, so I think 1,500 food feels a bit stingy at the minute. I also think that we should be allowing bigger rooms. I know I only just shrunk them. But let's try 350 maximum rooms, but also 100 minimum. See what that gives us. But I definitely think I should be upping the amount of food that spawns. I also think I should probably be putting more food on the floor per creature. So at the minute, it's a 1-to-1 relationship. Maybe we should change that. So first of all, let's double the amount of food to 3,000. Because I've put everything into variables, it should be really simple for me to. All right, feeling good. Okay, what do we feel about the ratio? At the moment, we've got per 1 food, there's 1 point of enemy. So if you have 25 food, that'll be 1 Devil's Coach horse larvae. If you have 125 food, is 1 adult defending it. I think we should up it to possibly 2 food per point of creature. I'll give that a go for now. And whilst I'm doing that, you can let me know opinions. So it's literally just going to be twice the value. No, wrong way around. Half the value. So you know what? I'm going to multiply it by a value. I'm going to make it a variable and I'm going to bring it out. So it's food to creature. Food to creature ratio. I'm going to make that float. Because of the direction I'm going with it. Then we can truncate that there. That's fine. I could round it, but to be honest, don't particularly care that much. It's not going to make that much difference. Okay, so food to creature ratio, we need to set where we're setting all our other variables. So they're all in the same spot, depending on the work it takes to do. So why not tie the food to creature value to difficulty settings, or give random multiplier? Yep. Well, at the minute I'm actually trying to reduce the amount of randomness, because we have a situation at the minute where there's too much randomness going on. Although there was at the beginning of the day. I think I've actually tamed it down to a sensible amount now. But yeah, difficulty values is definitely a good idea. So maybe at harder difficulties, there's more creatures and less food on the floor. So I'm multiplying the by 0.5. Multiplying the, yeah, so this should create less creatures per room now. Should be the result here. I can also up the food per tile to create more food per room. See what we get. Tiny little rooms. It must just be enough to hit multiple tiles. So I mean, we can only see the tip of the iceberg there, but yeah, it's enough for the edge of it to hit the side of these tiles as well. So my guess is that room is actually a and that one as well. Okay, so in this circumstance, if I tunneled here, I also want to give the player some resources to start with so they can tackle their first rooms. There we are. That was a fairly sensible sized room. That room looks like it failed. I think we've all failed here. We're all failures here. Oh, I don't know why I'm watching my queen get murdered. So here's a question. Do I move the queen slightly left? Or draw this? I think she needs to be slightly left. I think I got the tiles wrong when I did this. Or at least... I think that's right. Is it though? Do we move them up now? Up one? It looks to me like it needs to go up one as well. There's no real way of telling without counting the tiles. But anyway. A real boy. Okay, so let's take a look at those difficulty settings like you said. Now, I did want the extra levels to have difficulty settings. Maybe they won't always have them, but I did want them to have them. And we can fake difficulty settings, actually. I did add a system in to do that ages ago. So we can actually get the difficulty settings from the game state, I think. Yeah. It's quite simple. So basically those three stats, if we just deal with them differently, different levels. So in easy, for example, we actually have 0.2, 0.5 as normal, 0.9, 1.5. So this is often about the split we have. So you'll notice between easy and normal there's much less of a jump than between normal and hard, and again to normal and insane. It's usually not a bad way to do it because the people playing on insane are looking for a real challenge, so they can handle the jump. Okay, so total cavern food. On easy we can have, for example, maybe 4,500. On normal, 3,500. Actually, 4,000. Then 3,000 and insane 2,000. And then, right, the food per tile, I'm not even sure it actually, let's increase it for easy so there's less caverns. I think that would cause, but this isn't as important as the others. Like that doesn't, the jumps don't need to be as extreme. Okay, so I'll fake the difficulties and see what we get in each difficulty setting. So it's in something called level methods. There's a way of overriding the difficulty. Because normally the difficulty is actually pulled from the setup. So when you start the game, it saves a setup file for the level you're loading, which will include the difficulty that you selected. However, you can override it. There it is. Override difficulty. Okay, so let's start with easy. So that should spawn a lot of food and not many creatures. And you should notice that the caverns are actually quite rich in food. That looks right to me. Yeah, loads of food, not many creatures. And then flip it over to the other end of the scale. Insane. This should be the opposite. So not much food, loads of creatures. Looks right. I mean, that, for example, that is a lot of creatures for the amount of food that's there. I mean, they're not all going to be perfect, because you're not going to be able to tell which creatures are Devil's Coach Horse larvae and which are adults. But there you go. Okay. So let's, rather than making this left bracket, let's now make it happen when you start the level. So let's create an event called Setup Caverns, and that's just going to do all that. Okay, so that should do it at the beginning of the level. There we are. Yeah, I think I can get rid of those debug spheres now. Okay. There we go. Element of randomness and replayability. Of course, I can't send ants anywhere. They've got a long way to go.
The battle has begun.
Oh dear. Right then. Okay, so that deals with that aspect of it. Well, it does for now. We might need to revisit it later. But for now, we've got something in place that works. So, I guess the next major milestone on this level is the waves. Before I do that, I'm just going to work a little bit more on the map. Hang on, before I do that, let's save the map. Okay, so make that small, not that. I think that's the player's pawn. Yeah, it is. So this is where the camera starts at the beginning of the level. So I'm going to shove that there. I remember you can do much finer detail in the ground. Yeah, I'm thinning out the corridors a bit here, essentially. So I might do some fun things with these splits. So, for example, one route on each side is dug out from the beginning. I might see if I can get the tunnelers working again and get them to tunnel in, like open up that route as well. Or try to, like open up there and that sort of thing. Doesn't really look much like a nuclear symbol anymore. Although I'm not that bothered about that. Alternatively, what I could do is seal off like one side of the base, so you are just open at one frontier to start with, and then bring the tunnelers in as time goes on to make it more difficult. I think that's not a bad call, actually. Also gives the player a bit more digging room near there. Near their nest. Okay, so the first entrance for enemies to come in is got to be here. Maybe the first couple of waves come in and then it starts to open up other areas. Now, regarding difficulty, there's a few ways we can handle difficulty in this. We can simply do it by reducing time between waves. We can do it by increasing attack power of the waves. I mean, the level's infinite, right? So and as the level progresses, we want it to open up more attack route options, maybe creature options, like creatures that are attacking you options. Mm. Okay, let's start putting the basics of the system in place anyway. Trying to think where else this has been done. I'm pretty sure there is. I think where else I've done it. I've definitely done it in free play, so we can have a look at the free play director. See how that does handles waves of creatures. It looks to me like it's just doing two different arrays, one of the creature to spawn and one of the level. So that doesn't really give us the answer we need. Oh, this looks interesting. So it's kind of like what I'm after, actually. I'm sure the spawn interval is important. Oh, yeah. Let me just see where that's used, if it's used. Right, it's used in swarm creature spawn. Oh no, it's used in... Right through the levels, actually. I think it'll do the job anyway. Sorry, I need to read something that's on the screen in that position. Okay. We can work with that. Battle Arena spawner looks alright as well. In fact, this might be a bit simpler, so But here we can actually store where they're spawning from. That's what the spawn act is talking about. Yeah, so swarm creature spawns, the one that's won the day for me. Essentially, it's a structure that I can populate and use how I see fit. So essentially we want a function to set up the wave, then a function to spawn the wave. Set up the wave will populate this array, spawn the wave will spawn the creatures in this array. So first of all, let's create a place for them to spawn from. So there we go. Oh. So it's a function I want to use now, which Liam is removing from the game as we speak. So I might ask him about it. See what I should do about it. Okay. The question, there's a few questions that are cropping up now. So first of all, how do we know which tunnel spawners we can spawn in? I mean, obviously we can spawn. We could make them spawn in any of them, but some of the waves would have a long way to walk. Randomizing that isn't a good idea. It's probably best seeing which ones are open, because my plan is to open up more routes as the level goes on. However, it is possible for the player to shut down those routes being opened, because it's just going to be a tunneler that comes in and starts tunneling. Maybe there's a check I can do, like, if these tiles are dug out, then that tunnel's considered open. Or maybe the tunneler, if it manages to tunnel out those tunnels, it flags that tunnel as open. Yeah, a couple of approaches I could take here. I think I'm going to end the stream in half an hour. So just to let you know. I'm going to go till 3. Okay, so anyway, let's create this function to store. Beeping stop now. It's really quite hot in here. Open the window wide. Get some air in. Okay, so let's create a function, set up wave. What exactly what it was called. It's called Swarm Creature Spawn. Oh, there's that. Okay. An array of swarm creature spawns. First of all, the basic test. 5. Beach tiger beetle smalls, 1 second apart. Oh no, that's spawn interval. That's right. Yeah, I know what this means. So 1 second interval, 2 second apart. Okay. So basically, well, I can program this how I want, but actually I don't really know what it means. I just leave that as 0 and just use spawn interval for now, considering I'm doing this myself. Okay. So that sets up the wave. Right, I need to add the spawner into this. And we're in setup wave. Spawn wave next. In fact, spawn wave needs to be an event. I intend to use timers on it. It's a queue. It shouldn't. You should just look at the next one. Okay, we might need to rethink this. I'm not going to rethink it right now, but we might need to rethink this. Just going to get the wave at 0. Turn by event. Yeah, I'm gonna need to approach this a bit differently, I think. What we have here is a chunk of creatures, and we're saying, so we're gonna spawn this chunk of creatures over this amount of time, and then leave it going. However, in order to do that, basically we're stuck spawning that type of creature in that amount of time. I'm not sure I want all the same creatures to spawn, then all the next one. Maybe I want to jumble it up a bit. Don't really know. Which makes me think what I should have is a structure that is just the next creature to spawn, and just have a giant list of the next single creature to spawn, and then randomize it. And you need to put a delay in between them spawning because you don't want them all appearing at the same time. It can cause all sorts of problems if they do. For now, I'm just going to set up something basic using what I've got here. just so I've got something in place, and then I'll work from there. I think that's what I want to do. Rotation matrix given only z axis, x and y are unspecified. We are orthogonal. It should be alright. It's a vector. No. Actually, that's not a good idea. You want them to look like they're coming out the tunnel. You don't want them in a random rotation. So this is literally just giving me a very basic grounds to start off. Okay, we should have, as soon as I press left bracket, actually I haven't run the spawn wave yet, so you need to add that in. I think I'm going to end the stream a little early, by the way, quarter of an hour early. So in 5 minutes' time, I'll get this working, and then we'll call it. I'll also, but before I go, I will just take a quick look at the source control, and we can see what's going on. Okay, let's give that a go. Okay, 5 have spawned. I think I just need to set the current target. I think I can just do that. Apparently not. Oh no, it's not current target. Swarm point. Sorry. My fault. Current target's changed all the time. Swarm point is what they're trying to head towards. Okay, yeah. There we go. That's the basics of an attack wave, but we are going to have to get cleverer with it.
The queen has fallen. Her body will be dissected and her untended brood pillaged. Most young ant colonies will end this way. Just another meal for the creatures of the underworld.
That's not my queen. Oh. It's an interesting bug. Okay. Right then. I think that'll do for now. Here's a question for a future mechanic. What about recycling fallen ants for tiny amounts of food? We've actually considered that. But even the smallest unit of food, 1, I think would be too powerful. It's actually been a struggle of ours with the way the game works, because the more enemies you throw at the player, it's only a disadvantage to a certain extent. Once you get powerful enough, the more enemies you throw at the player, the more food you're giving them. And I think our ants not giving food is actually one of the things saving us from that problem totally destroying things. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. No, I honestly, I don't think that's. I wouldn't hold your breath for that happening. It does create quite a few balance issues. Right, just having a brief look at the source code, at the source submits for this week. Liam reckoned the underground pathfinding seems to be working. I beg to differ. But basically, he's done more work on the underground pathfinding. There's still a lot of bugs with it. It's not playable yet because it breaks during trying to do brood jobs quite frequently. I've also noticed a few other glitches with it. But it's coming along. Oh, that's an interesting one. Right, so something's been added to warn players if they try and play free play before playing a Formicarium. Oh no, hang on. If they try... Yeah, if they try and play free play before having a Formicarium, they get a warning indicating that free play is an extension of Formicarium play mode. It's basically recommending players set up a Formicarium before they go into free play. Liam's made some changes to trails, so that might be interesting to some people. So I'm not sure why he's done this. He clearly felt it needed it. So ants returning home are now gated, so ants don't just go home whether they want. I think they stay at the end of the trail until they are sent home specifically, or they can only be sent home at a specific rate. And if they're in combat, they're not deregistered. So I guess if they come out of combat, they go back to the end of the trail once they're done in combat. That'll be why he's done it. It'll be because the ants were going home after they were fighting. So if you have a long combat, then it stops. They all just go home. And he increased the number of ants that will wait at the end of the trail. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So you should have more ants at the end of your trail now. We'll have to try that in practice when things are fixed. Oh, Liam's just submitted a big one. Project to grid routine is replaced by project to nav setup for underground. Okay, so that's Liam replacing the navigation functions. We shall have to see what the difference that makes. I believe Matt is currently working on ramps above ground. He's working on making them snap into the tile grid rather than us just placing them and making things look right around them. He's looking at actually making them part of the tile grid so they snap in place and will look right. And that way they'll be part of the tile grid rather than it, which ties into a load of the optimizations we're doing. Okay, so there's a few of the things we've been working on, and I've been working on these monthly maps, obviously. And I was also working on jump as well. And this morning we're actually having a long discussion. So okay, so coming back to chat first before I go into this discussion. On free play, there's nothing but worker colony works on free play. Rather. Worker colony. Oh, nothing but a worker colony. So just a colony with just workers. No, it works. All right, interesting. Well, to be fair, the value of the free play creatures of the workers, you get a lot of value on their death. So if you just have them, although a lot of them die, it's not so bad, is it? So interesting. Okay, so something we were discussing this morning is actually the rewards you get from these levels. It's from these extra levels that we're putting in, and we're also thinking about potentially rewarding free play, but we're not exactly sure how yet. And there was a few things raised. Possibility of making the campaign slightly less grindy, because some people struggle to play through the campaign on one playthrough of the missions, so they grind out levels. It's not necessary. You can do it without grinding the levels over and over, but it's hard. So basically, a good player will find the Formicarian challenges easy to get through, and a mediocre player will find them hard and might just find that they're grinding over and over again. So there was the potential of these potentially lessening that grind by giving some rewards. However, we don't feel we can give territory or resources. Royal Jelly's not so bad because you can take that with you between the Formicarium tiers, but territory and resources are a bit trickier. So we had a long discussion this morning and yesterday about how and what we can do with that. That said, we haven't reached a conclusion on it yet. I think we'll be rewarding players in some way for playing these levels, but we're not 100% on what reward we're going to give for them. It might just be jelly. You might have to choose your colony to send the jelly to, that sort of thing. Because they're not meant to be part of the campaign. They won't be presented as part of the campaign. They'll be in a separate section on the menu. Anyway, so thanks for joining me today. It's been a slightly longer one than normal, I think. Only slightly though, but it's been good for you to. It's been good having you with me. So I will be back next week, definitely on Thursday, but possibly earlier in the week as well. There might be a bonus stream. So I'll see you then. And it's been a pleasure as always. Right. Thanks for joining me. Bye.